Rapsidious by Joseph Gatz. Read by Pumpkin Patch 1234. Edited by Xufei Liu. Asher Graves, age 22, found the ring in the bathroom of a FoodSmart grocery store. He didn't know exactly what it was, and if anyone had seen him pick it up, they would have told him to stop grabbing random trash from the bathroom floor. He picked it up, studied it for a moment in the dim LED lights, and, finding it pleasing to the sight and touch, slipped it into his pocket for further examination later. Asher didn't fully understand the implications that came with possession of the ring. Even if one of the old gods who had forged the ring was there, he still would not have understood. He could not speak, he could not control his impulses, and while he could understand general concepts, he lived in the moment. Only what was currently happening mattered and made sense to him. He could go to the fridge and get himself a glass of milk, but he would never understand how the milk got there, or what milk even was. He could toss a quesadilla into the microwave and heat it up, but he would never really understand why the food got hot or how the machine operated. Asher was a trim, fair-skinned young man with a kind face, and while he rarely smiled, the light of happy contentment could often be seen within his soft gray eyes. His hair was long and unruly like a rock star from the 70s, but he was far from flashy. He always wore plain clothing with simple patterns. Chaos in any form, even something as simple as mismatching clothes, could set off his autistic barriers. To protect himself from chaos, Asher isolated himself. He neither required nor desired attention from those he didn't know. He took a long time to get comfortable with anyone, but when he did, he trusted them implicitly. Raymond, Asher's older brother, had been his constant companion since their father had passed away years before. More of a guardian than just a brother, Raymond, who looked a little chubbier and stylized version of his brother, had short-styled hair, more fashionable clothing, and his top priority in life was making sure Asher was taken care of. Every week, he picked him up from the adult care facility where Asher lived and took him out to shop and hang out. That day, they had done grocery shopping and then to the mall. The ring sat in the pocket of Asher's jeans, quietly influencing him in ways he couldn't yet perceive. It traveled with him everywhere, even on the carousel where Raymond stood alongside him to make sure he didn't fall off. Asher loved the carousel. He loved watching it spin, he loved watching the horses go up and down in a predictable pattern, and he loved all the gears and cogs that made up the visible machinery of the ride. He did not understand the strange looks people gave him, being a grown man riding the carousel, and his big brother did everything he could to help him feel normal. The feeling of love Asher felt from his brother, and the joy he felt from riding the carousel, caused him to involuntarily part his lips and breathe the H in the word happy. He couldn't fathom using the word, and prior to that moment, had never felt the inclination to do so. But the power of the ring was leaching out into his bloodstream, and the chemistry of his brain slowly began to alter. After the mall, they got a bite to eat, walked around downtown, and then Raymond took Asher to the adult care center, checked him in, and walked him to the third floor where he stayed. Asher immediately ran for the blinds upon entering his small apartment in the facility, opening and closing them using the attached drawstring. Raymond put everything they had bought on the counter and started carefully putting it away. If anything was out of place from where Asher would normally look for it, it would cause Asher to become noticeably uncomfortable. He would first try to fix the thing himself, whether the object was in the wrong place or positioned in the wrong order. Things had to be placed correctly. If they were of different sizes, they needed to be arranged from largest to smallest. And if they were of different colors, they needed to be arranged from softest to darkest color and grouped with similar shades together. Things had to be neat, clean, and most of all, they had to be the same. "Asher," said Raymond. "Asher, look! Look, Asher! Asher, look!" Asher did not stop what he was doing. He continued to open the blinds to their limit, then closed them until not a speck of light could enter the room. But he turned for a moment to regard his brother, who was holding a half-empty bottle of milk. Raymond knew having Asher's attention was short-lived and jumped on the opportunity. "This milk should be empty by now, Asher. You're not drinking enough milk. Would you like a glass?" This was enough to grab and hold Asher's attention, and he let go of the drawstring, prancing over to his kitchenette, where he opened a cabinet drawer and grabbed a spill-proof cup. He unscrewed the lid and put it down on the counter beside his brother, then crouched down so that his eyes were level with the lid of the cup. Raymond opened the jug of milk and poured the contents into the glass as Asher watched with innocent fascination. Asher then grabbed the lid to the cup and screwed it on himself. Cup in hand, he went back to the curtains while taking liberal swigs of milk, opening and closing the blinds. After everything was put away and the night nurse came to check Asher's vitals, Raymond helped his brother get dressed for bed and sat with him while he got comfortable. "Okay, Google," said Raymond. "Play Asher's playlist." The device sitting on the studio apartment's nightstand played soothing piano lullabies, pieces Asher had grown up with, music that had been in his life since childhood. Upon hearing the music, he vocalized a grunt of happiness and wiggled himself into a comfortable position. His brother sat at the edge of his bed, browsing the internet on his phone, until he heard the gentle sounds of Asher snoring. He leaned over, put a soft kiss on his brother's forehead, and turned out the light, intending to leave him for another week. But the ring, still in Asher's pant pocket, now discarded in the soiled clothing hamper, had its own intentions. That night, Asher had one of his favorite dreams. He was in an endless warehouse filled with balloons. Balloons were one of Asher's favorite things in the world. They defied gravity. They were colorful, they came in every shape and size, and best of all, they were sold in every store that Asher went with his brother. Asher ran through his dream collecting balloons, releasing them and watching them float away. He jumped up and down with excitement as he did this. The visuals in his dream were so distracting, he didn't notice that a figure had been approaching him from across the warehouse. When it reached him, he stopped, startled by an intruder in his dream space. The figure was shrouded in darkness. Even within the above lighting, his face was obscured, yet Asher felt no fear. There was no sense of discomfort with this figure, only a vague familiarity that he couldn't reconcile. Feeling no danger, Asher went back to his pursuit of the balloons. The figure stood with quiet admiration of Asher's behavior. Asher, who had only been watching the figure through an occasional side glance, saw that the ever-present shadow that seemed to encase the figure was dissipating. Like the clearing of fog over the San Francisco Bay, shapes that had been hidden develop into simple forms develop into basic detail. Then comes the realization that something familiar had previously been hidden was there all along. The figure was Asher's father, who had passed away when he was still a child. As if no time had passed since their last meeting, Asher ran over to him and gave his father a tight hug. It was strange behavior, especially as Asher rarely displayed physical gestures of affection. He gripped his father and held him close as he did. Asher felt a hand gently stroke his hair. He couldn't hold his emotions together any longer, and Asher wept into his father's shirt. And for the first time in his life, Asher vocalized his thoughts into verbal speech with the simple word, "Dad." "That's right," said his father. "My boy, my beautiful baby boy, it's me. It's really me. I've missed you so much. I wanted so badly to hold you in my arms again. My boy, my sweet little Asher." His father held him close and ran his large hand over his son's long hair. "Still hate getting your hair cut, I see," he said with a humorless laugh. Asher, who had only spoken for the first time moments before, suddenly found the will and desire to do so again. It started as a whisper. "Yeah." Then the whisper developed into a fully formed word. "Yeah," he said. The world The word felt long and awkward as it left Asher's mouth. It reminded him of the way deaf people at the group home spoke, but he desperately wanted to communicate with his father, and after speaking his first word, the rest just seemed to follow with ease. "Why did you go?" he asked with a slur to his voice. "Why did you leave me?" "I'm sorry, son," he said, finally releasing his embrace and holding Asher's face with both hands. "It was just my time." "I don't understand," said Asher. The slur in Asher's voice wasn't getting better. If anything, it seemed to grow thicker with each passing word. His mouth just didn't know how to process words yet. It was like trying to run with untied shoes. "I died," he said. "I had a heart attack. It wasn't something anyone could control." "But I wasn't ready for you to leave me, Dad. I miss you. I want you back." Asher's dad, Jackson, wiped the tears from his own eyes as he embraced the boy again. If Raymond had been a clean-cut version of Asher, Jackson was a mix of the two. His hair was short but unkempt. His face was not as thick as Raymond's, but more rounded than Asher's. His defining feature was his overall height and size. He was noticeably taller than his son with broad shoulders and the thick arms of a manual laborer, and those arms held on to his son with the sorrow of their last goodbye. "I missed you too, Asher. I love you so much. I missed all of you. I'm sorry I had to go." "Please don't go again," Asher whimpered, clinging to him now. He couldn't lose him again. "I have to," he said. "I could only come here to speak to you once, and now I have to go back." "Why?" asked Asher frantically. "Why do you have to leave again? I don't want you to leave. I need you here with me. I need you, Dad. You and no one else." At that moment, no one else mattered. Not the staff at the adult care center, and not even Raymond. "I have to explain something to you, and I wish I had more time, but I almost have to go. None of this will make sense to you now, but one day it will, I promise. You need to remember the ring you found when you wake up, the one that you put in your pocket. Do you know what I'm talking about?" "Yes," said Asher. He hadn't associated the object he had found in the bathroom with the word ring, but it seemed to fit. He knew what his dad was referring to. "Good," he said. "It's special and very, very important. It passes from person to person on a journey you need to carry on, and it will keep traveling until it reaches the place it needs to be. While it's using you to achieve its own goals, you are using it to achieve something you never could on your own. That ring will give you newfound strength and understanding. Just by being around it, it gave you the power to summon me and to speak, and there's so much more you can do. I can't explain it to you now because you won't be able to understand it yet, but when you wake up, put the ring on and never take it off. It's a gift and a curse that belong to you alone." "A curse?" he asked, pulling away to look upon his father. But it was too late. Already he could see his father fading away. "Yes," he said, holding his hand out to the boy, frowning as it passed right through Asher. "Like this, it's all temporary. Nothing lasts forever, not even with the ring." "No, no, I don't want you to go. Show me how to fix this. Make it better, Dad, like you used to. Fix it like you fix everything." "I can't," he whispered. "Just remember that I love you, son. I will always—" Silence. Not a trace remained, and in the warehouse filled with balloons, there was no hint that his father had been there at all. When Asher awoke, he did so with a burst of mournful wails. He flooded his pillow with tears. His cries of pain resonated through the moonlight-soaked building. It wasn't long before the night nurses descended upon him, frantically trying to figure out what was wrong. To their surprise, he spoke. "Come back, Dad," he said with a deep slur. "Don't leave me again, Dad. Come back." Asher's primary doctor and brother were called in. By 3 a.m. that morning, they were all sitting in Asher's room having a conversation. "How did this happen?" Raymond's eyes filled with worry. It was the type of worry that only Asher could elicit from him. The doctor, a sleepy Indian man still dressed in his pajamas, shrugged. His eyes danced between the two brothers. I don't know, said Dr. Patel. There was no sign during Asher's therapy that this breakthrough was coming. Of course, such occurrences are not unprecedented. The human mind is full of undiscovered and unexplored possibilities that we have only begun to understand. We've known for some time that Asher has had an excellent memory, and his ability to process information has put him closer to the functional side of the spectrum. But this, the doctor trailed off, looking at Asher, this is going to take a long time to figure out. Asher stood up without warning and walked to the bathroom. Where are you going, buddy? Asked Raymond. I need to get something, he said. There wasn't a hint of hesitation or slur in his voice. Jesus Christ, Asher, Raymond breathed. How long have you been trapped in your own mind, trying to get out? Asher rustled through the soiled clothes until he found what he was looking for. In the pocket of his jeans was the ring. Unceremoniously, he slipped it onto his finger, briefly admiring how it looked. A simple gold band encrusted around the center with small blue gems. When he had first woken up, he had mentally felt like a man who could breathe clearly after suffering a long time with severe congestion. But with the ring on, it amplified his clarity of thought until it overwhelmed him and he grew lightheaded for a moment. He steadied himself, then walked back into the room. The eyes of his brother and his doctor were upon him. I understand now, he said. Understand what, Asher? Asked Dr. Patel. Asher walked over to the window and grabbed the drawstring. He opened up the blinds until the window was fully visible, then let the drawstring go. He had opened and closed those blinds so many times, but this was the first time he allowed himself to take in the simple beauty of the Sacramento skyline. Everything, said Asher. I understand everything. What is that you're wearing? Asked Raymond. On your finger. Asher brought the ringed finger up and held it close with his other hand. It's my ring, he said, allowing his hand to fall again and turning to face the two men. Where did you get that, Asher? Asked Raymond. Dad gave it to me, he murmured, and a peculiar smile crept onto his face. A pocket from a distant universe burst open, far above the San Francisco. Like an open wound, heavy purple light poured from it like molten lava from a volcano, expelling a single humanoid figure. Once clear of the tear, the pocket closed and the light disappeared, but the figure fell down into the city. She landed quietly and gracefully on a car like a stuntman doing a mundane scene in a movie. And while the car was completely destroyed by the figure's impact, the figure itself survived without a scratch, not a strand of her long black hair out of place. Her nude form rose from the wreckage with the ease of someone climbing out of bed in the morning. She looked around and took in the city's landscape. It was alien to her. The last time she had visited this universe, there had been rolling fields, desert sands, lush forests, and beautiful oceans in every direction. Now, there was just concrete and steel. At the edge of the Allies' entrance was a flashing neon sign. Knowledge is just another form of energy, and beings like her could tap into it at will. It took a moment to adjust her perception of this reality to read the strange writing, but eventually she made out the language. She now knew that it was English and read it carefully. Bay, city, loan, and jewelry. Chains, diamonds, and rings for sale. Rings, she whispered to herself in the native tongue. Perhaps this would be even easier than she thought. The bell attached to the pawn shop's door rang as the nude woman walked in. The bored, overweight clerk looked up from his iPad, his eyes immediately widening. Whoa, 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 don't come in here, lady. You get out of here right now or I'm calling the cops. You hear me? Out! The woman approached the counter and picked up the heavy-set clerk by his neck, tossing him against the back wall. Vintage lunchboxes, old PlayStations, and a collection of drones fell down from flimsy shelving onto him. She looked down on the pathetic man, studying his soiled, faded Nirvana t-shirt and frayed jeans. The surface layer of her nude body morphed to mimic his clothing. His shocked expression at seeing her initially enter his store intensified upon seeing this change. He dealt with meth addicts every day. He had begged his boss to install a security buzzer, but the cheap bastard wouldn't even pay to have the cameras in the shop monitored. While her body morphing had surprised him, erratic behavior from a junkie was always expected. "Are you the keeper of the rings in this world?" "What? I don't know what you're talking about, but the rings are in the display over there," he said, pointing. "Take them and get the hell out of here." She followed the direction of his finger and examined the display for the object she sought. The ring of Rapsidious. "It is not here. Where is the ring?" "This is a pawn shop, lady. Rings come and go. If you had a ring here before, I might have sold it already. That's all we got. Just take whatever. The silent alarm is going off. The cops are on their way," he lied. The security device hadn't even been paid in 6 months. She scoffed. "You know why I am here. Where is the ring of Rapsidious?" "Huh?" he said, trying to pull himself up and regain control of the situation. "I'm not even the ring guy. He works on Tuesday. Maybe come back then. But I really think you should get out of here. Like I said, the cops are on their way." "You're not worthy of the ring, peasant," she said, looking him up and down like a piece of meat. "None of you are." "Yeah, you're telling me, lady. Your people gave me a name once, and it struck fear in the hearts of men like you. It seems you have forgotten me. I'm the Witch of Barons, the seeker of the ring, the finder of lost things. I have come as darkness into the world, that whoever falls within my gaze shall burn in eternity." The woman's eyes began first glowing yellow, then orange, then white, with the blinding intensity of the sun. The clerk didn't realize what was happening. He felt a strange sensation of heat inside his body, expanding until he caught fire. His screams echoed through the pawnshop as his skin charred and the fat within melted until he was a barely recognizable pile of charred and burning bones. The heat from the fire quickly spread throughout the shop until a raging inferno engulfed the entire building. The woman exited the shop through a sheet of flames. As she disappeared around the corner, the spreading inferno caught on the rest of the building, causing a natural gas line to explode, destroying the shop and most of the city block. Asher didn't sleep that night. His brother didn't sleep either. For the first time, they had a conversation. Asher asked his brother about what he did for a living. He worked as a legal aid. He asked him if he had a family of his own. He did not. He asked him about their mother. "We talk," said Raymond. "A little." "I don't ever see her," Asher murmured. "She has never visited me." Raymond sighed. It was an uncomfortable subject for him. "She's just busy." "Busy with what?" "Life," he said. "It's been really hard since Dad's been gone. She didn't work before that. Now she has to work all the time, and it's not like Dad left us with much. A good chunk of it got you into this place. But we've been on our own for the most part." Asher stroked the ring on his finger. He ran his fingers simultaneously over the rough of the gems and the smooth surface of the band. "I saw him, Raymond. I saw Dad." Raymond leaned forward. "What do you mean you saw him?" "He was in my dream, but I don't know. It wasn't a dream." Asher looked around the room as if trying to find the words to describe what had happened. It had felt so real. "He came to me. He was talking to me." "When was this?" "Last night. Just before you got here." Raymond took a deep breath. He missed their father, too. Any word of him made him remember the day they walked out of the hospital room never to see him again. There hadn't been a funeral. They didn't have the money. The hospital kept the body, and they kept only memories. "What did he say?" "He told me." Asher now closed his whole hand around the ring protectively and took a deep breath. "He told me that things would be different from now on. Better. And worse. He said I wouldn't understand now, but I would later. Well, I guess he was right, huh, little brother? I guess so, Asher smiled. So what happens now? What do you mean? I don't know. This is all new to me. Do you leave? Do I leave? Where do I go? What do I do? Raymond leaned back in his chair again. The weight of his responsibility for his little brother was never far, and at that moment it came bearing down on him like a lead blanket. I think you should probably stay here until they figure out what's happened to you. I mean, do you know what's happening to you? Do you understand it? And what the hell is with that ring? I've never seen you with it before. How long have you had it? I can't talk about the ring, he said. It's just something Dad gave me. Gave you? When? In your dream? I I don't I don't know. And as far as what's happening to me, I don't know that either. I can't even really explain what it was like before. What it was like being me. It's like I was sitting in a theater watching my life happen, but it was all happening in a movie. Like I was watching everything happen. Sometimes I would get frustrated because the crackers were in the wrong place, or the milk cap was left off, or whatever, and it felt like there was a fire inside my brain. I used to feel like only banging my head or opening and closing doors could help put out the fire. But I also knew that nobody else felt the way I did. But I remember you taking really good care of me. I remember you understanding. Thank you. Yeah, of course, said Raymond. You're my brother. The door to the studio apartment opened, and a chubby African-American nurse dressed in tiger scrubs entered with a cart of equipment. She was humming and her body swaying more than it needed to in a very endearing way. Hey, Lisa, said Asher. The nurse stopped in her tracks and put her hand to her chest, eyes wide in shock. Say that again, she said. Asher smiled at his brother, then back at Lisa. Hey, Lisa, he said. Lisa gasped out, running over to embrace Asher. This startled him, and for a brief moment he felt a slight throbbing in his finger where the ring was. Instinctively, he realized that if he had wanted, he could have stopped Lisa from getting closer to him. He could have done more than stop her. He could have completely erased her from existence. The thought filled him with passive dread. But he ignored it and allowed Lisa to grab and sway him back and forth in a massive bear hug. She laughed and cried and even kissed Asher on the cheek. He immediately wiped his face clear. I heard you were different, but I had to see it for myself. How did this happen? We don't know, said Asher, but it happened. And you good now? Did the doctors check you out? Are you cured? I wasn't diseased before, Lisa. I was just different. And now you're normal. I was normal before, said Asher firmly. I just didn't experience the world the way you do. Asher echoed the words he remembered his dad would say about him. That was something that always made his heart expand. His father never hid him or tried to change him. He only tried to help him fit into the world. But he also helped the world fit in with his son, even if he was different. But now, Asher was like his brother and like Lisa. Except he was more. He was the more that frightened him a bit. Every second that he wore the ring, he felt his mind expanding, further and further out of his control. He wondered what would happen if it expanded too much. Would it simply pop? He didn't know. After the pleasantries, Lisa took Asher's vitals and gave him a glass of milk with liquid vitamins. Asher drank the milk without a lid and didn't spill a drop. He got a wide smile of approval from Raymond. The Witch of Barons walked through downtown San Francisco, filled with confusion and anger. This world had grown too crowded. It was loud and busy. Steel pods on wheels roamed endlessly over tar roadways. People poured out of concrete castles and surrounded her to the point of suffocation. The ring was now impossible to find, or close to it. But it was known that the ring had been claimed by a new vessel, and as it could only be found while it was claimed, she needed to find it. It was her only purpose. It spent 1,000 years hiding in the ether and appeared like a supernova out of nowhere. But there were so many possible vessels in this world now. So many people. As far as her human-like eyes could see, the infection of humanity seemed to have spread like a virus. Were there 100 million people on this planet now? 1 billion? More? Hey, get out of the freaking way, lady! The sudden exclamation took her out of her reflective thoughts, and she looked in the direction of the shrieking human, with his head popped out of the side of his steel pod. A horn blew at her from within its framework. It was loud, unpleasant, and disrespectful to boot. She wouldn't stand for it. Covering her ears, she unleashed her fury upon the source, her eyes glowing as she extended a hand. The car caught fire, and the man screamed as his blood in his veins began to boil. A woman, watching the scene unfold, screamed as well, and the witch from beyond this universe turned her pointed hand to the screaming human. Her screams of horror became shrieks of pain as her own body succumbed to the heat. The surrounding panic spread just as quickly as the flames that burned from their bodies. Like ants under a magnifying glass, they fell into ruin. No one was sure of what was happening, or from where the danger was coming, but by the time the burning car exploded, no one wanted to be anywhere near the area. The witch floated in the air, her gaze burning everything that her eyes fixed upon. You are all unworthy of the ring. Bring it to me, or I shall burn your world until it is a lifeless cinder floating in the cosmos. The local law enforcement's response was confused and clumsy, but the strange floating woman was quickly identified as the source. Police officers took shelter behind buildings, shooting at her. Their bullets did nothing but betray their position to her deadly gaze. Everything she looked upon erupted into flames, soon becoming a pile of burning ash. The helicopters came next, first to observe and later to strike. However, no mortal weapon could do anything but enrage her further. She floated through the city, calling for the ring with a strained, unworldly voice and destroying everything in her path. The fist of man's might was slow to punch back, but after phone calls and emergency meetings, men dressed in various green patterns flooded the city. Their weapons were far more powerful than those of the humans before, but equally ineffective. Fire rained down from the heavens. Cracks of sounds emanating from steel pods in the sky launched volleys of weapons and death upon the witch. But their destructive capability was nothing compared to hers, and slowly she grew to welcome it. Surely if the humans were willing to fight this hard, that meant that the ring was close. She floated over a bridge, watching the broken remains of the city. When she was created, her function was that of destruction, and now, given purpose, she reveled in the execution of her function. Little did she know that in the millennium since she had last visited this place, man's talent for destruction had risen to her godlike levels, and the humans were not to be underestimated. Asher stood at the window as his brother slept in his bed behind him. Things would be different now. He could finally do all the things he had wanted to do before. He could sing along with the radio, he could play with his brother, he could visit his mom and give her a hug. He could ride the carousel all by himself. It was a universe of possibilities with infinite opportunities. Asher grabbed the drawstring of the window as he had the night before and slowly closed and opened the blinds. The fire in his brain was gone now. He didn't need the blinds anymore. He silently chuckled to himself, letting the string go. He then noticed the midday light reflecting off the surface of his ring. It fit perfectly. It's a gift and a curse that belong to you alone, his father had said the night before. But what did that mean? And a gift from whom? Did his father really give this to him? Or did he owe someone else for this ring? Someone, or maybe something? The questions were building up, and not for the first time, Asher wished he could talk to his father and demand answers. It had been a wasted opportunity the night before, but still, he wouldn't have traded that embrace for anything. That embrace meant everything to him. Leisha rushed back into the room. "We're evacuating the building, honey. We've got to get out of here," she said frantically. "Raymond, wake up! Wake up, sweetie. We gotta go." Lisa jostled Raymond until he gently pushed her away. "What's going on?" asked Raymond, still in a daze. "We gotta go now!" The terror in her voice was sobering, and Raymond immediately snapped out of his post-sleep haze. The sound of her voice stirred Asher's ring, and Asher felt it throb as he touched it. Whatever was happening, it involved the ring. He had no doubt. "What's happening?" asked Raymond, rushing out of the studio. The three ran down the hallway, joining the throng of escaping patients and nurses. "We're under attack or something," Lisa winced as they passed the TV in the dining room, hearing the dismaying news. On the screen, a Navy warship fired a barrage of missiles into the sky towards a distant, unseen target. Once they were on the elevator, Raymond turned toward the nurse and yelled, "Lisa, what the hell is going on?" "I don't know. The news says something is attacking San Francisco, and it's on its way here." "Something? What does that mean?" The order had been given, the unthinkable solution approved. At 1100 hours and 57 minutes, a nuclear strike was ordered on an unknown target moving up Highway 80, just outside of Vacaville, California. 3 ICBM with high-yield nuclear warheads were launched from 2 war submarines. Air Command tracked the missiles as they traveled from the coast of Hawaii towards their target in California. They ordered the evacuation, and troops moved away from the blast area as quickly as they could. The impact was met with a white burst of light, followed by a sudden outward rush of destruction. Even within the crushing shock wave, the witch's screams could be heard. The wave of flames traveled in every direction at 158 miles per hour. They approached Sacramento like an apocalyptic tsunami. When Lisa, Raymond, and Asher walked out of the door of the care facility, they could feel the wave coming. It hit them without time to think, speak, or regret. Their bodies were instantly reduced to the most basic forms of matter. Only Asher survived. The ring had been glowing, forming a protective pocket within the blast wave, and he could only yell as the strength within his body increased exponentially. For a moment, he wondered if he would die. Then, just as quickly as the idea came to his head, it was replaced by another. "I need more time," he thought to himself. "I don't know what's happening, but I need more time to fix this. I need another try." Then, as if by request, time stopped. The world stopped spinning, and the destructive power of nuclear weapons stopped progressing. Every electron stopped spinning around its nucleus. Then, time simply turned back, reversing with the ease of a vinyl record being turned back by hand. When it stopped going back and Asher felt that time had returned to normal, he was once again standing in the corner of a food-smart bathroom, holding an interesting ring he had found. Only this time, he put it on immediately and held it close. He stood like that until he heard his brother behind him. "Are you okay, buddy?" Asher turned to face his brother, a new expression on his face. "Something bad is going to happen," said Asher. "Something very bad." All right, guys. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Please just remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, and come back next week for the continuation. Thanks.